Good morning, everybody. All right, for those of you who are just joining us for today for the first time, we want to welcome everyone again to our 2020 South Texas All-Staff Virtual Conference. We're excited that you are all able to join us. And just a reminder of a few things that we talked about yesterday. Our TPA chapter is in its 12th year of hosting this annual all-staff conference. And even though we can't be physically together, it is our hope that this virtual conference will be a great learning opportunity, especially as many clubs are preparing to safely reopen their doors for the upcoming summer program. Just a reminder of a few housekeeping, virtual housekeeping items. Be sure that you stay on mute throughout the presentations to avoid any background noise and distractions. And again, if you're watching the conference as a group, hopefully you're practicing your social distancing. And if you have not already done so, please use the chat box to enter your club's name and the names of all the staff that are present so that everyone can receive proper credit and certificates after today's trainings. Throughout the presentation, feel free to ask questions and use the chat box. They will be monitored throughout the presentation by committee members, and our presenters will have a chance to answer them accordingly. And lastly, just a reminder, this is our first time hosting a virtual conference, so thank you all for bearing with us through our transitions, through some of our things, and we really appreciate all of our guest presenters who have been able to adapt with this opportunity with us. And
yes,
now
welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Valerie, did you get a chance to come to the luau last night? I heard there was some twerking going on.
She's like, yes, a little bit.
There was a lot of fun, so thanks for everyone who joined us last night at the luau. We also have an awards today, right? We have our TPA awards day coming up at, what time is that, Val?
At 11:30.
At 11:30, so we have a lot of cool stuff coming up today. Thank you again for those that returned. And right now, actually, I'm gonna get started on our first presenter. I'm really excited. This is one of our own. So today we have with us Dalinda Gonzalez Alcantar, and she is currently our secretary for our TPA-RGV chapter. So plug there. She's also the CEO for the Boys and Girls Club of McAllen, and she comes with a wealth of knowledge. She's going to talk to us today about summer learning loss, but before her career here at Boys and Girls Club, she was an educator. So let me read this because I don't want to miss anything. There's a whole lot. So she's a mom and wife and a social entrepreneur. She currently serves her community as CEO, of course, of the McAllen Club. She's the co-founder of Border Kids, a startup dedicated to increasing upward social mobility by engaging kids of color in the K-12 space with meaningful technology learning experiences. So she has her own e-commerce clothing store, A La Blanca Apparel. She was born and raised in McAllen, Texas, over 10 years of teaching experience, has a BA in Fine Arts and Communication Design from Texas State University, San Marcos. Her master's is in Curriculum and Instruction at the University of UTPA, University of Texas Pan American. So she is, in 2016, Dalinda spoke at Georgetown University's Own It Summit, where she sat on a panel featuring Latina leaders in the country. She was awarded the Rio Grande Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Woman of Distinction Award. I know she's also done TED Talks, right? So she's well known around here, around the community. We all love her. So today we have her. And then I know you're also gonna have Dalinda with you, Nicole Saenz, right? And Nicole is with us. Nicole's with Region 1 Education Service Center, which is our Education Service Center, and she's a project director for the Gear Up program. So, so we have a lot of info here on education. We're ready to learn. So without further ado, here's Dalinda and Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rocio. That was very kind of you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me see. Let me get this set up. All right. And so if I want to check out the chat that's happening right now, someone give me advice on how to do that.
You have to go towards the top of the, where it shows like your green, and it'll give you your option to look at chat. Like it'll be a pop out.
Okay, here you go. Got it. Awesome. All right. Not super sure why that's happening, but all good. I'm gonna go ahead and begin. I'm gonna move this off for just a second. All right, so I don't know if this is a good look for everyone. I'm going to pull this off a little bit over here. There you go. All right, so we are going to discuss combating the COVID slide specifically. So kind of stinks because there used to be just a summer learning loss, right? And that had all kinds of data in and of itself. But now because all of our kids, especially our club members, have been out of school since March for many of them, now there's this new term calling the COVID slide. And so we're really excited to be here with you guys today and talk a little bit more about the importance of all of our work that we'll be doing in the summer. So I want you to remember this image. Oftentimes, you know, during summer camp, you may forget your purpose, but you know, data suggests that there's over 65% of us that are visual learners and will remember things visually. So you're going to see this girl going up the slide the wrong way. Finally, actually, that's the right way for us. And that's how we're going to remember that we don't want our kids going down the slide. We want them progressing up. And so you'll always be able to kind of remember that image. So we'll go on to the next one. This is something really interactive, so I'm asking that you just use your smartphones, and we're going to use the chat. I want you to actually just Google the term summer learning loss, and then I want you to go ahead and place your definition in the chat, and then make sure that you give a shout out to yourself by putting your name and then also the clubhouse, okay? So again, using your smartphone, if you can just Google the term summer learning loss and kind of put some key phrases for that. And then I'm gonna have that up on the screen here. And we'll go, I'm gonna put a timer on for, let's say 2 minutes, okay? So if that's fair for everyone. So again, you're just using your smartphone and you're Googling the term summer learning loss. I'm giving about 2 minutes. Okay, so already we have some really great ideas. Vanessa, it's the loss of academic skills and knowledge over like a long, you know, a course of time. Norma Linda here from McAllen. Loss of academic skills and knowledge, and also from McAllen, our social worker, the loss of academic skills and knowledge over the period of long breaks. Desiree, also the same. I'm glad we're picking up on the same first definition that comes out on Google, which is the loss of academic skills and knowledge. I love the way Jocelyn Downing said it. It's a summer setback. That's a really great way to remember that. And the loss of academic skills over a period of time. Nicolette from BGCSA, to summer setback or summer slide. That's good to use the term slide. Remember our image that we're always going to remember. We have about 30 more seconds. And I love that Nicolette put, this happens when your child doesn't use or practice the skills he or she learned at school during summer vacation. Thanks, Nicolette, for diving even deeper into the term. See if we have anything new here. I see that Nancy put that the reading loss is like 1 month. Declines are sharper in math and science, and it's sharper at the higher grade levels, absolutely. So the older that we get, the older our kids get, the sharper that decline is actually going to be. All right, I have my timer going off. So I really appreciate that. And I want to let you know that everything that, not only that I'm sharing, during this presentation is really important information. I'll actually also say that these are strategies that you could actually use within your summer camp. So the fact that I didn't tell you guys what summer learning loss is, but instead asked you to look it up yourself on a smartphone that oftentimes our club members are used to just using for like entertainment purposes. But now we're asking them to use their devices for academic purposes. If you allow devices at your clubhouse, allow them to use them. Otherwise, maybe you can put some kind of key terms and navigate them towards the definition. But what we don't want to do, and what I didn't do now, is actually just give them the definition, right? You guys all had a stake in your learning because you looked it up yourself on Google. And so it's more likely that you're going to remember summer learning loss because I didn't give it to you, but instead you worked for it, okay? So that skill and even small little refinements like that during summer camp really actually make a really huge difference. So all of y'all were correct. That's what summer learning loss is. So it's just a loss of skills and knowledge that kids, learned during the school time. But remember, keep in mind that this summer is especially going to be tough for so many of our club members because they're coming in with months and months of learning loss. And Nicole's actually going to give us a lot of really great information regarding that from the academic standpoint through Region 1 and Gear Up. All right, so check it out. Sorry, there you go. Here's a really cool tool. It's kind of old school, but I really like it still. I feel like it's the most robust. So if you want to poll any of your club members, there's this really great, it's polleverywhere.com. And so if you go into this, if you go into the polleverywhere.com on your device, I would like for you to actually answer that poll, that particular poll that's there. We're going to kind of get started with our purpose, all right? So if you head on over, to polleverywhere.com/AlindaALCAN481, you're going to be able to answer that, and then I'm going to actually let you see where we are with that particular poll. So go ahead and head that way, and then I am going to show you where we're at with that poll. Let me find it. I have a lot going on my screen. So polleverywhere.com, it's free. You can do a bunch of other really cool stuff with it. So if you have some, you don't even have to have like super robust, you don't even have to have like super robust technology at your club, but you are going to, be able to use Poll Everywhere. I'll show you where the poll is at. I apologize. Yes, Vanessa, it's just one question. All right, so the question is, again, if you go to polleverywhere.com and then DalindaALCAN481, the question is, do you think that summer learning loss is impacted by a club member's family income? I'll give you guys just a few more minutes to be able to answer, but the cool thing about Poll Everywhere is that your club members are really going to be able to interact with it. It's especially great for like the older club members, teens. So they're able to have a voice, right? Youth voice is super important. They're able to have a voice, and then they're immediately able to use that voice and then see what goes on with that in a quantitative way. So do you think that summer learning loss is impacted by a club member's family income? Right now we have about 83% that says yes, and we have about 17% that says no. So I know that we are waiting just a little bit. It seems that we still have some people that are answering. And again, the question is, do you think summer learning loss is impacted by a club member's family income? I'm gonna go ahead and put 1 more minute on our timer because it looks like some is still coming in. We have about 30 more seconds. All right, it looks like our poll is full, so we reached our max. So this is going to be a really great sample size. So according to everyone that's out there, summer learning loss, 84% of y'all that were able to take the poll said that that club member family income does play a part in summer learning loss. And then 16% of you all believe that a club member's income or their family income has no impact on their summer learning loss. So that's really good to see. Again, this is a really, really cool tool that you can use at your club. It's polleverywhere.com. It's free. There's a bunch of other like great resources within this particular site. So when you are teaching your club members and mentoring your club members, this is some really great tools. So I'm gonna actually head back over to my presentation, and we're, again, about 84% of us said that we do believe that that someone's income or the family income does impact. So what I will tell you, and what the next few videos are going to show us that will continue to lead up to really understanding the impact of summer learning loss, but more importantly, the awesome work that we do at our clubs every day, but especially during summer camp, and especially this year due to the pandemic, we're gonna really be able to answer how important our work is, right? But I want to go ahead and chat. So in the chat box, I want you to answer, why do you think that income impacts summer learning loss? And why do you think this will be an especially tough year for our kids? So the answer, data, research that we will continue to see, it all shows that 100% income does impact a club member's learning loss. And so overwhelmingly, all data suggests that income plays a large role in that. And we're going to kind of break that down a little bit, but I want you to answer this question. So again, why do you think that income impacts summer learning loss? And why do you think this will be an especially tough year for our kids? Normalinda mentioned that, and we're going to have a conversation for about 5 minutes through this, but Normalinda from McAllen says that, you know, income, yes, it oftentimes prohibits people from not having the resources at home like computers. So Marina also mentioned that in terms of online learning, they may not have that robust technology. Good, Andrea said, you know, certain families can afford certain resources. Another good point, Madison said, you know, a lot of our club members are just, you know, their families are just, you know, working paycheck to paycheck, right? So one, they're not at home with their kids. And I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking about summer learning loss. I just had a good time outside. So not only are parents maybe not home, but they're also working paycheck to paycheck. So if they're having to say, oh man, I really want to send my child to this summer camp or this reading camp or this math camp, but I need to, you know, buy groceries. Guess what? They're going to buy groceries. Kayla said limited access to resources and technology. Good. And then of course, Nancy brought us over to that second part of that question, and why will this especially be a tough year for our kids, knowing that summer learning loss is impacted by income. Nancy mentioned that, you know, the longer summer break, right, quote unquote, because they left school in March. Nicole's going to talk a little bit more about that, but the data that's suggested is shocking. But the long summer break is going to be really tough for them. Tamara said most of our families from low income or a one-parent income home, which is important to remember. The resources that are not there, or even kind of in their location, right? So we know that rural communities don't have as robust technology. Even right now, we're seeing that, and we're seeing how that gap is really, really playing a part when a lot of our kids are having to do online learning due to the pandemic. I love what Vanessa said. Vanessa said, income and parents' education impacts the way that families interact with their children. Conversations they have with their children, reading activities they do with their children, experience-based learning, I love that. Travel, we're gonna talk about that with their families. Vanessa, you're absolutely right. So here's the deal, there is, and we know this, right? Many of us that have gone to college, many of you all who know that your time and your money is well invested in going to college, because we know that there's a direct correlation between a college education and income, right? And again, we're just talking about general stats. I know that there's, you know, oftentimes outliers to that, but traditionally income and your education, they are directly correlated. So that's one of the reasons that you know, a family's income does really impact the summer learning loss, because oftentimes their income is based on their parents' education, which often might be that they dropped out, or that they went to high school only, or they had some college. And so that's gonna really interfere with the way that parents oftentimes interact with their children. There's also opportunity gaps, guys, that exist because of income. There's huge opportunity gaps that exist because of income. Also, there's information gaps that exist because of income. So Vanessa, I think you like really, really hit it on the nail with that. Experience-based learning, travel. Marcy, that's a really good point. Libraries do offer free things for kids to do during the summer, and that is a really good point. I'd also love to interject, Marcy, that for many of our clubs, right, here in our region, we do a really great job of securing scholarships for what I think is the best summer camp and the best bang for your buck, which is our Boys and Girls Club summer camps. So I would also suggest that not only do libraries do that, but we either offer a ton of scholarships or it's just, you know, much more financially feasible to go to Boys and Girls Clubs. Lack of guidance for students to ensure they're doing educational things as well. Good point. Parents are working, the kids are home by themselves. Yep. I love what Kayla said, priorities within the household may not be geared towards education and learning. Absolutely. I can tell you that, you know, if you, again, are a parent who is just working to make ends meet, I think that oftentimes, there goes our timer. Oftentimes, you're just thinking about meeting needs, right? And so planning is oftentimes an amenity. And I can tell you that as a mom that, you know, struggled when my kids were younger, that oftentimes just making ends meet, you know, was the priority. Vanessa, good point. The achievement gap will become even greater. Nicole is definitely going to talk a little bit more about that. Brenda said, in the Valley, we have a lot of Hispanic families, and at times they can't even help their children because they don't know any English. Absolutely. I can tell you that in talking to one of our parents here when I first started, I quickly realized that Power Hour was so important. I want to confess to each one of you that as an educator for 13 years, I never thought about how important after school time was and how important summer camp was. So as an educator, I guess I was kind of snobby, and I thought, well, we're going to do it all in our classrooms, and what we don't do in our classrooms, then, you know, there's just no way to catch kids up. And then I came to the Boys and Girls Club and realized that I was, you know, I was wrong. That classroom time is not the only time that learning can happen, and that rich learning and sustained learning can happen. And so I think we all can play a huge part. But, you know, especially those that come from Spanish-speaking homes, they really struggle, and parents have said that they struggle to help their kids with homework, with learning because of that, right? Because they are Spanish-speaking and they don't understand a lot of the homework that comes in. Give me a second. Let me grab that. All right. Vanessa, I think that you bring up a good point as well. That parents may also put a high value on learning, so they won't push their children in the ways that income or education parents would. Yeah, and again, I want to kind of make note of the fact, guys, that these are just data and statistics and research that we're working with, and again, we're going to continue to unpack that. There are always outliers when it comes to research, okay? So from an academic standpoint, what we overwhelmingly see is that income does play a huge role in that. But of course, I will say that, you know, that's not always the case, all right? So just a heads up on that. Thank you for sharing all of that information. That was great. The response was overwhelming. I appreciate it. We're gonna go ahead and head into these videos. Let me see if I can get this to work. Y'all can just kind of listen up to these.
If you're a child who lives in a middle-class American family, chances are you didn't start learning the day you began kindergarten, and you don't stop learning when the school day ends or summer begins. Your parents have likely been reading to you since you could hold Goodnight Moon in your baby hands. You might have seen your first pumpkin patch, or your first nature trail, or the seals at the aquarium from the seat of your stroller. Chances are you spent time in a good preschool, and now you dance or program robots after school and during summers. By the time kids reach 6th grade, middle-class kids have likely spent 6,000 more hours learning than kids who are born into poverty. Sounds like a big gap, doesn't it? So let's check our math against what the research says. 220. That's how many more hours well-off parents are likely to have spent reading to their children. 1,395 hours. That's the difference between having and not having a preschool education, which poor children access at significantly lower levels. 3,060 hours. Poor children lose even more ground in grade school. They're significantly less likely to be enrolled in enriching after-school programs or extracurriculars. 1,080 hours. Well-off kids are 8 times more likely to enjoy camp or another summer learning opportunity than poor kids. 245 hours. That's how much less time poor kids have likely spent visiting zoos, museums, or similar institutions during summer breaks. Altogether, that adds up to a 6,000-hour gap in learning time between kids who live in poverty and well-off children on the day they arrive at middle school.
All right, so did any of you all, yes, absolutely. I can get you all this information. If you know me, I completely geek out on all of this. So I can actually send people the PDFs where all of this research kind of outlines itself. This is really great. Christina specifically, this is really great to argue the importance of Boys and Girls Clubs in the community. Now more than ever, absolutely. But there's overwhelming data to suggest that funding a Boys and Girls Club, you are able to close all of these gaps. But for those of you that, I'll send you the YouTube links as well. So thank you for Christina for that. But that first video, I just kind of want to give you a summary. There's like my daughter and my son, because they come from a middle income home. They have 6,000 more hours of learning than those in low income communities. 6,000 hours more of learning, okay, y'all? I've probably spent well above the 220 hours reading to my children. It is something that is like the cornerstone in our household, reading. It is extremely important. Sometimes I think it is hard to be my children because I push reading so much. But remember that reading also helps a lot with math, okay? So middle income families, you know, they read at least 220 hours more. But I also want to say this, y'all. Again, keep in mind that this is what data suggests. There's always outliers, okay? So I wouldn't call it stereotyping. I would call them outliers in terms of data. So I know that both of my children went to really great preschools. And that's why it's so important for, you know, for communities to invest in preschool. But, you know, those that come from middle income communities, they get over 1,300 more hours just because they went to preschool, okay? So before those living in poverty, their first day oftentimes that they go to school and they learn is the first day of kindergarten. My children started going to preschool when they were 2 years old. So just think about that gap that already exists. And this next video is going to show us a little bit more about that. About a little bit over 3,000 hours of those living in poverty, they lose ground. And we're going to see that specifically with this video, what that looks like, okay? And again, how Boys and Girls Clubs, especially during this summer camp year, how we're going to be able to help lessen that gap. But they lose about 3,000 hours of learning. And I will tell you that middle income kids, they get a little bit over 1,100 hours of camps, experiences. You know, I sent my daughter when she was 5 years old to a reading camp. Even before she went to kindergarten, she was able to read at a really high level. And so that's about 1,100 hours. There's that gap that exists. And the 245 hours of actual experiences, things like flying in a plane, things like going to a zoo, things like going to a museum, all of that. So those are just kind of the breakdown, this kind of stunning research. If you're not stunned, you definitely should be. So, but if anything, this next video is really going to provide context as to why we exist, okay? So let me go ahead and move this out of the way. And this is the thing that I think really brings it home, okay, y'all?
Let's look at two children, one from a middle-income family, the other from one of the millions of low-income American families. As the two kids head off to kindergarten, look what happens. The middle-income child starts out with a 6-month lead. The low-income child is already falling behind because of a lack of access to early reading and preschool education. During their year in kindergarten, in the same school and classroom, the two children will learn at about the same rate, so we'll move them both forward 9 months. But look what happens in that first summer between kindergarten and first grade. Our middle-income child moves ahead about a month in reading because learning of one kind or another continues over the summer. The low-income child falls back about 2 months. So when school begins again, when they go back for first grade, the gap between them has already widened. During first grade, again, they move ahead at about the same rate, another 9 months. That next summer, the activities and lifestyle of the middle-income family keep that child moving forward, but the low-income child has fewer opportunities to reinforce good habits like reading, and that child falls farther behind. Then we come to second grade, and again, our two children learn at the same rate. But the summer after second grade sets our low-income child back again, and our middle-income child moves forward again, and the gap widens again. By just the third grade, the two children are already far apart. By the end of fifth grade, the gap between the children is 2.5 to 3 years. It will keep growing through middle school. So you see, without addressing what's happening during the summer, it is impossible to ever catch up. It's impossible to close the gap. No matter how much high quality learning goes on from September to June, every year the gap widens.
All right, so in the chat there, just give me like 1 or 2 words when you see that. When you see those 2 videos, yeah, good. That's a great term, Jackie. Wow. I've got shocking every time, and I actually studied learning gaps, and it's still shocking to me. I guess my next term would be disheartening. Celia, good point. It's unfair for the low income. Manuel, mind-blowing. Madison said sad. Vanessa also said sad. So again, just think a little bit about the 2 videos that you saw and just 1 or 2 words in the chat. Alexandria says, I'm shook. I didn't realize how far behind a child can be. Jennifer Phillips said that it's upsetting. That's a good point, Nancy. It takes 10,000 hours to master something. These kids are a severe disadvantage. It's disheartening, Jocelyn said. An eye-opener, Jennifer Cox said. Good point. Shocked and upset. You should be, Catherine, for sure. Jade said she's actually speechless. And crazy is a good term. Kevin said it's unfortunate. Extreme, Angie said it was extreme for sure. Heather said that she's had her kids in pre-K but never understood the advantages the other children are in. It's really sad. That's a really good point. I will tell you that when I was prepping for this, my 10-year-old daughter saw that second video and she couldn't believe it. She really understood what that meant. And even my 10-year-old understands the importance of Boys and Girls Clubs. And so she really felt like, man, mom's doing something good. Mom works for something, good. So Gwen said, looking for hope. Absolutely. Andrea said, sad because this is a reality for a lot of our kids, especially in the Valley. So I'm going to go on to the next slide as we continue to build up. One thing that the narrator said there is the term impossible, and I'm going to go with not impossible. Again, as an educator for 13 years, I will 100% tell you that it is not impossible, and that the work that we actually do here at the Boys and Girls Club can make a profound impact on lessening this gap. That's an accurate picture of me. That is not me. However, it looks a little similar to when I was younger, but I just want to briefly share with you the story and see if you guys actually have some similarities to my story. So when I was growing up, even though my dad did go to college and he was a teacher, my mother did not. And she was a migrant farm worker, did not graduate high school. And I think that at the time, especially, education was, I mean, it still is inequitable, but especially at that time with my dad, it just wasn't something that was really pushed in my home during the summer. Now, I don't want to paint this picture that, we were neglected or that I lived in extreme poverty. I did not. But what I can tell you is that during the summer, I played a lot of sports. I hung out outside, I rode my bike, I went to my neighbor's house. I've always really loved reading. And so I did read, I think, a lot more than most of my friends, but not enough. In all years in elementary or in junior high, I never once went to a camp. Not once did I go to a summer camp. I think one time I went to gymnastics with Parks and Rec, but otherwise I never did any kind of like learning, right? Or a camp like Boys and Girls Club. We just didn't do that. So I thought, that I was pretty all right. I got really good grades in school, elementary, and then in middle school, I kind of stayed on par with everyone. I specifically went to a middle school, if you know McAllen, Lincoln Middle School. I went to Lincoln Middle School, and I was one of the few with my twin sister. I was one of the few who actually had to go to Mac High, which is at the time one of the most affluent high schools. And not very many of my friends from Lincoln Middle School went with us to Mac High. And I could immediately see the difference between what I knew, my knowledge, my learning, especially in math, and what my peers knew. Now I can tell you, as someone who has studied this extensively, now I can tell you that it was because of summer learning loss and severe math gaps. I can also tell you that getting to have conversations with my high school friends, I can tell you that they did go to summer and math camps. Many of them actually went to math camps at UT Austin. They did not go to Lincoln Middle School. Their population was very different. They went to Morris. And they just had summer experiences that we did not. My freshman year was okay. My sophomore year, I failed math with a 38. I graduated from Texas State one semester late because I couldn't even pass the lowest math that the university offered. I had to go to ACC. And again, now as an adult, I can reflect back and look at my life and compare it to those who I went to high school with and realize that those summer learning losses caught up with me. It caught up with me so much that I couldn't get my degree till about a semester later. It caught up with me that I still struggle with math. And I often wonder what that would look like for me, how much maybe money I would have saved at school, because I took remedial math at STC several times. I tried to take Algebra 1 at Texas State several times. I tried really hard. I worked really hard, but those gaps and that learning loss just existed in a profound way in my own life. And so now that you know this information, I want you to think about your own life and the story that I just shared with you. And I want you to think about maybe if there was a struggle that you had due to summer learning loss. You know, now that you know this, did summer learning loss impact you? And you can go ahead and, if you feel comfortable, you can certainly share that on the chat. I know that we've had a few other comments. Tamara said, she makes a really good point. It's sad, but I've seen it for so long that sometimes it's become the norm because it's common. And I'm not sure how we can bridge that gap except for programs like ours. Tamara, that's a good point. Programs like ours is how we continue to bridge the gap. I'd also suggest that if this is something that really struck a chord with you, I know that BGCA has a really robust government relations department. We need to advocate for our kids, not only for Boys and Girls Club, but for things like pre-K or preschool for all, and making sure that we are funded enough to be able to meet the needs of our kids that come in with these type of gaps. So again, if heading back to this last kind of story, if now that you knowing this information, if there was any type of learning loss that you feel like, man, I think that was me. I think that because I didn't do a lot with my summer, I really saw that loss. You can go ahead and share it. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of continue to move on. I'm excited to learn about what Nicole has for us. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. Let me get this out of the way. All right, Nicole. So you guys, I'm super amped. Nicole Saenz is someone that I've been really impressed by. She doesn't know that I'm a fan from afar. She does a lot of really great work here. She works at the Region 1 Service Center. She's the coordinator and project director for Gear Up and for College Ready Career Set Partnership. A lot of the work that she does is she's extremely passionate about it and gives her all for that. So let me see, Nicole, I'm going to stop sharing mine and then you can go ahead and take the lead. Are we good?
All right, so hello everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for your kind words, Dalinda. That really does mean a lot. I was very lucky to connect with Dalinda a few years ago when I was a specialist there at Region 1, and so we've stayed connected ever since. So I feel the same way. I'm very impressed by everything that you're doing for our community, and you know, I appreciate that you reached out, and I'm happy to be here today. I'm very excited. So a little bit about me. I'm from the Region 1 ESC Office of College Career and Life Readiness. It's a mouthful. So within that office, I'm a coordinator, and then I'm also the director of one of our 2 Gear Up grants. And just to kind of give you an overview of the team, because we're a huge team. A lot of you know us because of like the PSAs that you see on TPA-RGV, the signs you might see on the electronic billboards or the billboards throughout the RGV. You know, we've been around with Gear Up for 20 years, and that's really where our office stemmed from. It was, you know, as wonderful as Gear Up is, and it is a national movement, it is a federally funded grant through the USDE. The question was always like, what about non-Gear Up students? And so our office was developed from that. Like, how can we help students who are not part of this grant, the rest of the educators, students in our regions? And so we now have this office who is led by the administrator, Melissa Lopez, and our director, Norma McCormick, and Dr. Elisa Alvarado. And so within our office, we actually have 5 different grants, Gear Up being 2 of them. We also have Project Paths, which is run by Dr. Alvarado, and that's like a nursing pipeline and health science grant. And then we have the EOC grant, which is helping and working with adult learners who maybe need to get their GED and need support, maybe paying for the test or even taking court classes to help them to pass. Help them to fill out FAFSA or fill out college applications. That grant is very small, so we're very limited on who we can work with. It's only like certain communities, but we're really trying to expand those services and make them available for everyone. And then we have like this huge team as well. So our specialists are the ones who really that go out into the community, work specifically with the campuses, and as well as our program assistants, our accountants. Everybody is here to work with all our ISDs. And so you mentioned a lot of things, and there was a lot of things said in the chat. And, you know, within all of Region 1, the entire service center, we have lots of different programs from, you know, working with early childhood intervention like speech therapy, OT, to working with adult learners, to, you know, certifying teachers and principals and things. But all of Region 1, just for your, you know, just a general idea and overview, the ESC services, all the students in the ISDs, in the, you know, oh my God, I just had a blank. I'm thinking of like a charter schools and then private, any kind of private or LEAs as well. And so in total in our region, we have 439,600 students. And so we try to service all of them. And so this office is really meant to serve everyone, regardless again of SES. And just again, going back to that, within all of Region 1, all of our students, our community is 85% low SES. And so that is 375, almost 1,000 children who are coming from low income families. And again, that those videos that you shared and shared with us in the conversation y'all are having in the chat, we're fully aware. And the great thing through our programs is that we're, you know, with Gear Up, it is free. We provide lots of services to both students, families, and educators, all for free through the grants. And then the services we provide through the office, they are for a fee, but they're for nominal fee. They're really, we are nonprofit, so we're just trying to make up for, you know, materials and things. But really kind of talking about this issue, and I'm glad you actually already showed that video, the last one you showed, that one about the gaps. We actually, as our office, have always shared that video for the last couple of years, because to make it clear as to what we're working with in the situation and acknowledging. And so I appreciate that you all were sharing your experiences, and maybe not recognizing that you did not see the importance of making up for that loss, and how big of a loss that summer break creates. And just to share my personal experience, you know, I went to Boys and Girls Club for a few years when I was a kid, but my grandmother was a paraprofessional for 35 years in Weslaco ISD. I'm from Weslaco. My daughter, actually Janie's here, I know. My oldest daughter goes to the Boys and Girls Club here in Weslaco. And so when she, at a certain point when we got older, she started taking care of us in the summer. And because she was an educator, even though she, you know, didn't graduate from high school, she got her GED and was able to work with the district. She recognized how important it was. So she herself made sure that we were reading all summer, taking us to the public library. She would, you know, make sure we were playing games, like, you know, mind games, like, you know, things that would challenge us, like checkers and Chinese checkers and Scrabble. We were always outside. We were not allowed to watch TV all summer, even though there were plenty of TVs and Nintendo back in the day and all that. And so because of her, I recognize now as an educator how meaningful and important that was to my success. And really, like, one big thing in our office, and that I think you all should really connect with, if you don't already, I'm sure you do with parents, is really bringing the whole family in, because it's so important, especially when we think of working with low SES and first generation students, is bringing the whole family. When we think about like Europe, our ultimate goal is students to get to college, but not just to get there, but to complete some type of certification, some type of degree. But when you're talking to kids about it, you're not just telling them, hey, go to college, it's important. It's frightening enough for that child on their own, but really you're bringing the whole family. It's the first time the whole family is going through that college application process, that FAFSA application process, that first day of college process, and that experience. And especially if they're leaving the Rio Grande Valley, they're leaving home, the whole family is experiencing that transition. So it's very important to connect with family, not just parents, but grandmas, sisters, brothers as well, because it's really the whole family unit that's being impacted by this loss, or by that continuation and the pursuance of education, post-secondary education. So I'm going to kind of skip through the video since we already showed it and shared it. But it's so very important that we do our best, obviously, to support these families and these kids. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit, especially because now we already know this is old. This has been happening for years. This summer learning loss, that's already been happening. Now we have this new thing called the COVID slide. And so I just put this little picture, have hope, because some of the things you're going to hear, you're like, wow, now it's compounded. But we still have hope, because you all are here. We have great programs through the Boys and Girls Club. We as educators are working with students. We have families who are doing their best. Parents, as much as we're all trying to struggle and balance working from home, and our kids, my daughter, my youngest is right here next to me. We're all trying to balance all these things, but there still is hope, because ultimately, like, we still need to push ahead for our kids. So just on Thursday, TEA released a new presentation in response to the COVID-19, and a study was just released about the COVID slide. And so what the COVID slide is the loss. What have we lost when it comes to student achievement and learning because of COVID-19? So if you go to TEA and look up a presentation that's called like Adjustment to Summer Schedule, this PowerPoint is part of this. So what it's showing you here is that we're just going to take third grade because it's easiest, since that's there at the bottom. We started school, most schools start end of August, beginning of September. So let's say we're at September 1st. So student learning occurs all throughout the year. We're learning. Typically what happens, we learn, and then during the summer months here, we have that summer loss, that learning loss that the videos talk to you all about. But if you look at it, you take this dotted line here, it's not too bad. Like, we lose just a little bit here in the learning, but it's easy to make up for in August, September. The teachers, expect it. They work to fill that gap. And so we continue to have success the following year. But now with COVID-19, they have this thing that's called the slowdown. So right here, we're starting third grade. Schools closed in about mid-March. We have spring break, and then most of us didn't return from school. And then the slowdown would occur. And so this is just saying, again, we know that kids didn't have access to technology. Kids were getting paper materials, taking the time to get those things. We know, again, educators adjusting. But as you see already, there's already a gap kind of building between what they would have been learning in the traditional school setting to what happened because of COVID-19 happening. So that was just kind of like the estimates, really. This dotted line, this thicker dotted line, is really the estimates of what people expected to happen. This new study is showing that what really happened is that once we had the school closures, the COVID slide occurred, which means this stark decline in learning. So no more did kids just, again, have that small learning loss over summer, which really year by year builds up. And again, just like Belinda shared about her experience with math, now it's as though students ultimately, if you look at this dotted line and walk it back all the way, it's as though they stopped going to school in November. this is what the new research is saying, is that students have lost about 8 months of learning this school year. It's as though they started the year, went to about 3 months of school, 2-3 months of school, and they're done. Like they might as well have just stopped in November. That's how much of a loss there is now because of COVID-19, with combination with the summer loss. It has now decreased learning for this year to about only 2 to 3 months of learning that actually has taken place. So I'm going to stop right there because it's a lot to process, and it is very frightening. But again, continue to have hope. So, but I'll give you a second or two just to process and look through this, and I'll be looking at the chat a little bit. So again, looking at this slide, the biggest loss of learning is going to occur in math. And obviously for the younger kids, our youngest kids right here in 3rd grade, there will be a loss in reading, but it's not as big. And looking really even at the top to our 8th grade, and these are our Gear Up students actually right now are in the 8th grade. The loss there is, again, going back kind of minimal, kind of like they stopped about January, February, not too bad, maybe like most of the spring semester. But we know, especially with Boys and Girls Club, because a lot of our elementary students take advantage of that, that's how much of a loss there has been in their learning when it comes to mathematics. And so our ESC, the content specialists, our administrators, directors, executive director are all fully aware and responding to this accordingly. Of course, even before Thursday when this was rolled out and this was pushed out by TEA, we were fully aware that this information was going to be shared and that this was going to happen. And so we are, as an ESC, responding by increasing the amount of professional development available to educators throughout the summer. If you go to our ESC site, they have resources for free for teachers about e-learning. So if you don't know about like Google Classroom or using Zoom, there's free websites, webinars that are how-to that they can take advantage of. Our parents as well, we've created a parent portal for parents to access resources, also showing them how to, even simple things. When you think about parents, if you have never even set up an email, how do you do that? How do you get access to your child's grades? All those different things. And so our ESC is trying to respond accordingly to this issue at hand. One other thing as well, obviously, is that TEA is suggesting the change of the calendar year. They're suggesting, obviously, that we kind of take an intersessional calendar, meaning that we have flexibility, that there are now more breaks spread throughout the year. We recognize that until there isn't a vaccine, most likely there will be times in the school year where we're going to have to come back home and we're going to have to, again, shelter in place. So we don't want that loss of learning to continue for an extended period of time. So the TEA is asking for districts to already plan for that flexibility so that they can already plan for a week off here, a week off there to make up for that and to allow, again, for the curve to be flattened. So it's a lot. And so I know, it's kind of scary. It is scary to see when you see like that dramatic loss of learning. And so I say yikes and move on, because there's only so much we can do. And this is really the conversation we continue to have with our campus facilitators and our educators and principals, is that we all know that this is the reality. This is the reality of the situation, but we cannot be overwhelmed by it either. Again, the idea of having hope. We can't just focus and dwell on all these things that are out of our control, and what is really under our sphere of influence, which is, again, the connections that we have with our community, with our students, with our educators, with our families, and letting them know ultimately that we are here for them, and we're trying to create new and innovative ways to reach out to them and provide support to them, so there isn't that extreme loss in learning and that summer loss continues to happen. We want to continue to support them and provide support, and we want them to know we're here. So it's very, very important for us to let them know. And so, yes, we can dwell on all the things that have happened and the research and the statistics, but that's what they are. They're stats. They're numbers. They don't consider our community. They don't consider us as people. They're just numbers. So we really need to put a face and put our hearts and minds towards working with our kids and our families, and ensuring that we do our part to decrease that loss. And so really, I want to recognize and say, like, the role and benefits of Boys and Girls Club, like, in our community, is really the enrichment opportunities. So we talk about the loss of learning with summer, and again, the loss of learning because of COVID, the COVID slide. You have, as an organization, great enrichment opportunities for students to learn and connect with each other as peers, opportunities for them to engage and develop their curiosity. It's so very important that you all continue those opportunities and connect with partners like the ESC. And that's why I really appreciate that Dalinda reached out, so that we can think of a way that we can work together to better reach our community. Us as our grant, we are required to have a minimum of, one community partner or one IHE partner, but we have like 50 partners. And so, like, for example, when it comes to summer camps, for us this summer, we are creating very few of those. We've asked our partners to create them. And so, like, UT-RGV is creating several different virtual STEM camps for us. We're reaching out with other partners to create literacy camps, others for TSI. And so really, like, I know that you all have like some summer programs and things available to kids. And again, I ask you that you continue to support those and provide those to our community, especially, again, we think about the low SES, the students who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. That's why it's so important about programs like the Boys and Girls Club to continue, because of the affordability and also the accessibility, because you are in each of our communities throughout the region, throughout the valley. You provide easy access to kids who otherwise wouldn't have access to museums and trips and other experiences that, again, higher income children and families would have access to. So it's very, very important that our community knows also. I didn't, mention there is the branding is the name. You all have this, national name to your organization, and the respect and the clout that comes with it. Our community also knows that you all are there, always providing these enrichment opportunities throughout the school year, but then also the summer camps. Really kind of take advantage of that branding. It's so important, like with Gear Up, even though we expanded to this Office of College Career Life Readiness, everybody always calls us Gear Up, like, oh, Gear Up, Gear Up, Gear Up, because we've spent 20 years building this brand, which is fine. Even though we have other grants and everybody still calls them Gear Up, it's important to use that brand to your benefit and really capitalize on that. And we have resources as well and opportunities to connect, because if you all are struggling or needing support with connecting with the community, please let us know. And that's why, again, I'm so glad that Linda reached out, because we right now are in 55 middle schools. So I have a person who is at each of the 55 middle schools throughout the region. We have from Laredo to Hebronville, all the way down to PI. Yes, you can. The Gear Up middle schools. And so if you are struggling with getting numbers or reaching families, we can help make those connections. And so we really want you all to take advantage of us also as a resource, because, again, we have that accessibility because we are an ESC. We have access to lots of partners that can provide support if you all feel that there's any gaps, or, again, affordability. Gear Up is all about working with low SES first generation students. And so that is our main focus with our cohort. So again, our kids right now are 8th grade. So definitely if we want to connect through Gear Up, we can also do that as well. The other thing that I wanted to kind of hit on is the idea of SEL. So this is the big thing. So I know you're like, well, how can I help? Like if kids are struggling, they already were struggling with this loss of learning that was going to occur because they come from low income, and now COVID-19 slide is occurring. What am I to do as an organization or as one person? And that really goes down to the idea of social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is really just how we learn. and how we manage our emotions, how we set goals for ourselves, how we show empathy, how we establish relationships and make responsible decisions. When it comes to SEL, it is key number one right now for our students and educators. How can we expect kids to learn if they don't feel safe? If they don't feel like they know where food is coming, if they don't know how they're going to get access to technology to do, their assignments that the district is asking them to complete. How are they going to feel safe and confident about doing their work if they have a family member who is sick, who has contracted COVID-19, or if they're concerned about contracting COVID-19? All of those things are impacting our children and their brain, and it is really creating trauma. One thing that we have through our office is a counselor network, and that is the biggest thing we're hearing from counselors, is like, how do we respond to the social emotional learning of our kids when they are going through this emotional trauma, as well as our families, our parents are going through it as well. Like, how do we as adults, and think about yourselves as adults and as workers. I know myself and my team, it's like we are so exhausted. The lines between work and home are now blurred. You're working at home, it's like, well, I'm at home, I can stay a few more minutes, responding to an email. Oh, somebody's texting me. Oh, somebody's calling. And we are working ourselves really almost to death. It feels like we are exhausted at the end of every week because we are working ourselves more than we would if we were in an office setting or in a building with students. Because we feel like as educators and you all, as community members and as a nonprofit organization, we feel like we have to be there for our kids and push ourselves, but also we're exhausting ourselves at the same time. So this idea of SEL doesn't just apply to kids, it also applies to us as adults, as parents, and it's important that we respond first and foremost to this. One of our partners that we work with really focuses on SEL, and they always talk about Brain 101. And they, do a presentation for kids and educators about the development and biology and evolution of the brain. And the first part of the human brain that develops is called the reptilian brain, which is the smallest little area at the very base of your brain. And so the reptilian brain is just like that. You think of like an alligator or a crocodile. How do they usually behave? They usually obviously are very aggressive. They, act on instinct. There's no thinking. There's no, cause and effect. There's no pros and cons or weighing of ideas. No, it's like, let me just react. It looks like food. I'm just going to eat it. Let me just slam and bite and be aggressive and violent. Well, again, as we mature, as we grow, as we become young adults and grow into adults and maturity, the rest of our brain starts to develop. And again, we can make those conscious decisions. And again, like SEL says, we manage our emotions and we think thoughtfully about our decisions that we're making. We become more self-aware and more conscious of ourselves and other human beings. We become empathetic. Well, right now, things like trauma cause us to revert back to that reptilian brain. Automatically, we really get to that idea of the fight or flight. And so how can students learn if they're back here? Their brain hasn't even matured yet because they're just kids and they haven't fully developed the other areas of the brain. So automatically, with all the trauma and all the questions and all the unknown, they are back here. They are back here wondering, like, how am I going to do this? None of this makes sense. I have no control over my environment. I have no control over learning. I can't see my friends. I can't see my family. I hear my parents arguing over money, struggling to get food on the table, or maybe a parent has now become unemployed because they're not considered an essential worker. It is very hard right now. And so first and foremost, we need to respond to the emotional side of our students. And so the great thing about your program is that because you all continue to offer enrichment opportunities and summer programs, you can really use that time to focus on the emotional needs of our kids, because it takes away the stress of learning, of like the traditional learning. You think like, oh, like I don't have to do math and I don't have to do English, even if they're learning some of those skills through fun and through play. But the big things with SEL are really the ideas of creating the safe and supportive learning environment. And that's the kids knowing that I'm safe here, either physically, or I'm safe to make mistakes. I'm safe to kind of be silly, and I don't have to always be cool and look tough. I can just be a kid and have fun and engage with other kids. Developing the growth mindset is one big thing that you all can definitely work with during your camps. And growth mindset, again, goes back to that feeling safe. I feel safe enough to make a mistake. I'm safe enough to maybe seem dumb because I don't know the answers. Like Dalinda shared, like we might feel self-conscious. Well, I don't want to share that, I failed, college algebra multiple times and I struggled and this and that and that. That's us and our ego. We want to keep up with this image. Well, the same thing with kids. Like they don't want to look dumb in front of their peers. And so rather than looking dumb, they stay quiet and they hang in the back. Well, we want to give them an opportunity to make mistakes. And if, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you don't know, ask. But in order for students to do those things, they have to feel safe. And the other thing with growth mindset is that the idea that there's no such thing or as smart or dumb. It's the process of learning. No one is a genius in one thing and one thing only, or it's not. Like when it always comes to math is always the best example. People think, well, you're either really smart and good at math or you're dumb. Like I'm dumb. I'm always going to be dumb when it comes to math. I suck at it. Like I'm terrible. Like I'm never going to be any good at it. That's not true. If you learn about the brain and the way the brain evolves, you learn about dendrites. Dendrites are just the parts of the brain and the areas of the brain that grow when you learn something. And every time you practice and you practice and you practice, you're building that part of your brain. So that learning experience of building dendrites never ends. You're not just born with a certain amount of dendrites and you're like, that's it. Like I'm either really good at this one thing and I'm never going to learn again. The same thing with the idea of like the analogy of building muscle memory. You can be a good, for example, you want to be in football, you have to, again, lift weights and you lift weights, you lift weights, you practice running, you practice and practice. You do it over and over and over again until, again, you become better than what you were a couple months ago or a year ago. The same thing when it comes to math or reading or any other, type of learning. People really think about the body because you see physical and you can see the growth, but that same thing happens inside of your brain. And the thing with kids is that they don't realize that. They just think, I'm either good at this or I'm bad at this, I'm dumb or I'm smart, or that person is dumb or smart and that's it. Like that's all you're ever going to be. And that's not true. So the great thing about Boys and Girls Club is that because you're taking them out of that school setting, they can, again, experience that safeness to kind of make mistakes and learn, continue to learn. So really that's something you can tie into your programs if you don't already. And again, building opportunities for students to build self-confidence and also persistence. Because again, it doesn't matter if you try once and you fail. It's about, again, getting on the horse and trying again, and allowing that growth to occur, that muscle memory to occur, or the muscle mass to grow. And so this little framework, this little circle here, is from CASEL. So CASEL, just like that definition that you saw here, CASEL is an organization that really has developed SEL, and they've been around for a long time. SEL is now just becoming like that fad word that everybody's just like jumping on, because now the good thing about, I know it doesn't seem like there's a lot of good things, but the good thing about COVID-19 is that people are now looking for this and saying, this is what we need, when SEL had already been around for quite a while. And CASEL created this framework, which is really like SEL focuses on self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And Boys and Girls Club does those things already. But really now, you just have to be more targeted and more focused on these things. So again, with teachers, we tell them, like, you do SEL. Do you have time to do SEL? They're like, oh, we don't have time for this. I have to cover all these TEKs. You do those things every day. You talk to your kids, you ask them how they're doing, you ask them about their day, you see that they're, upset, you see that they're sad, you ask them and you talk to them, you approach them, you comfort them. You're already doing those things already. Now is just the time to become more targeted about them. Because again, we need to help the kids, because how are they self-managing? How are they self-regulating right now when, again, they're struggling, they're here in this reptilian side of the brain right now is really what's taking over, because they are afraid. So how can we help them to manage their emotions right now when, again, they are going through this trauma and this experience? So really that's the big area that I'm asking Boys and Girls Club to really focus on is on the SEL side of the kids, and all the programs that you all offer through the summer, and even moving forward into the school year, that you really think about SEL and how you can build those things. And so I didn't include it on here, but the 5 big factors, these factors right here, really impact not just, again, students right now, but they impact, and studies show, through obviously into adulthood. Us as, you know, adults and in the workplace, how do we self-manage when maybe we're upset about feedback we're getting, or there's another employee or staff member who's upsetting us, or we're not working very well with? So these skills are really workforce skills. So we're not just preparing the kids for right now as kids and learning in the classroom, we're preparing them to become adults, productive citizens. So this is really lifelong learning, and that's really why our office is called College, Career, and Life Readiness, because these are skills that are going to take our students to be successful through adulthood. And then the last thing I also want to share is our resources. So through our office, we do have a website. And then if you go to CECCR, which is our center, or you can also do OCCLR, which is the Office of College, Career, and Life Readiness. If you go to the OCCLR page, you can find out about all these things we're offering. We're actually offering lots of different workshops in the month of June, webinars for a low fee. And even Region 1, if you go to www.esc1.net, you'll hear about lots of different webinars that are being offered. Nominal fees, $25, $50 for participant to attend virtual webinars on things like SEL, things about like, again, learning technology, e-learning. You'll find out about our resource for parents. So if you go to the ESC website, you'll see also the portal for parents. So that's available there too. If you want to look for resources to share with your parents, that's there at the main Region 1 website. And they have a link that says COVID-19. You can just click on that. And then of course we have our Facebook, we have our Twitter. So if you follow us, you can hear about the great things that we're doing and maybe ways you can partner, or even things you can share and push out with your kids. So just because we create it, if we put it out for the community, anybody can use it. So don't feel like, well, like, oh, that's Region 1. It's like, no, feel free to use it and to, you know, push it out with your families, your students as well. And then of course, like, go to CASEL. CASEL has created specific resources to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. So specifically there, they have a section for students, a section for parents, because we know parents, we're all stressed trying to work from home and also get the kids to do their schoolwork at home. And then they also have just, you know, for educators. So go to CASEL's page, and they're all free resources. CASEL provides a lot of their resources all for free. And then of course, TEA. TEA has now a COVID-19 resource page as well, and they're constantly updating. That COVID-19 slide presentation, those 2-3 slides, that was from the TEA's page. They just released it on Thursday. So there's lots of stuff they're constantly updating and pushing out week by week. So you really have to kind of regularly go in there if you don't already. And then just kind of the last thing, I just want to say thank you for all you do. I mean, you all are such a wonderful organization. You know, my daughter's here at the Boys and Girls Club in Wesco. You know, I was a Boys and Girls Club child as a kid. And the big thing though is that as stressed as we are, as challenging as this time is, it's important, again, that we don't lose our heart on why we're here. We can't allow that stress and that fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of the future to weigh us down too much, because our kids, our families are relying on us. Again, like we always talk about with Europe, the idea of the servant heart. And I tell people, if you don't have a servant heart, you don't belong in Europe, because we are here to help kids who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to get to college, who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to go to museums and go to college visits and all those things like that you saw in the video. Because of Europe, they now get access to all those resources. So it is our job to make the most of it and ensure those kids get those experiences, and that family has that experience of going to college. So the same thing with Boys and Girls Club. I know you all, you know, are here because you have good hearts and you want to help our children and our community. So again, it's as stressful as it is right now, you know, don't lose that hope and continue to again work with that servant's heart. So thank you all so much. I'll put my contact info in the chat, so if you want to reach out or anything, you need anything, I'll put my email on there because I didn't actually put it on the slide anywhere. So But I don't know if there were any last questions or just anything else that anyone wanted to kind of discuss. And I'll stop my share as well.
Awesome. Gosh, Nicole, thank you so much. I can't wait. I can't wait to see you in person. I know Jennifer Phillips, she raised her hand. She said that she has a question, I think. Yes.
Okay. There you go. Okay, Jennifer, let me go back. I see a lot of Tamara. Unless Jennifer, if you want to turn on.
Did I make that up? Maybe I could have.
I see Tamara's comments. Let me see.
No. All good. Hey,
Okay.
Nicole, do you mind? I'm gonna start to share my screen real quick.
Okay.
To just kind of let me see, move us a little bit. Thank you again, Nicole. I hope you hang out with us. Super cool. Shout out to Mary over there at BGC in Weslaco. Always great to hear from alumni that are doing great things. So thanks, Nicole, for that. And it's exciting to hear that your daughter is over at the Weslaco Club. I'm gonna move us towards the end, just kind of to wrap things up really quickly. I am really excited because you got all of these statistics and you heard from educators, from experts on this, but I will tell you that there is something that if you're new to the club and you may not have already gone through this, during the school year we have Power Hour, of course, and that helps again lessen that learning loss that happens throughout the school year. But then specifically in the summer we have Brain Gain. I thought this was a cool little this was made by the club, one of the clubs. So
Brain Gain. Learning can be intense. With direction from your local Boys and Girls Club, you can stay educated through the summer months. Over summer, teens lose a majority of what they learn at school. But with Brain Gain programs, we offer many educational and fun ways to excel in and out of the classroom.
All right, so we do have answers to bridging this learning loss. We have really robust curriculums that, again, from my teacher hat, it was like I just really geeked out on all of the curriculums that Boys and Girls Club could offer. Those are just a few that are on the screen. I know some clubs offer way more than that, but I can tell you during the summer, if you thought about potentially dismissing Brain Gain, please know that, especially this summer during the COVID slide, it is incredibly important that you facilitate that curriculum. And, you know, as well as the DIY STEM, I know using myfuture.net, that's like a really, really robust online learning platform. I really love the diplomas to degrees. I know that that's for our older kids, but if you are having summer camp for teens, I really, really love that diplomas to degrees. It's very similar to when I was the coordinator at, for AVID, which is a college and career readiness program. I was really impressed with these curriculums. And so if you're a youth development professional, you may not have seen all of these curriculums yet. And as we continue to move into training, you'll know or just know that there's a toolbox for all of these. There's an app, there's of course you can print out all of the materials, and even with the social distancing guidelines, even with the limited amount of children that we will be having over the summer, you can facilitate these, and all together we can just really kind of lessen that learning loss that we know is going to happen. But how empowering is it to know that clubs across the country and in this region are going to take a really, really big role at making sure that that loss lessens. And again, remember, we're all taking a part in moving the kids up, up that slide, right? We all of the work that we do is going to be extremely important this summer. So again, for youth development professionals, know that you may be thinking, God, what's going to be my role in this? I've never been a teacher. This is maybe my first full summer, And then all of this data is so overwhelming. Well, just know that it's really great because Boys and Girls Club of America have a ton of really great curriculums that are a lot of fun. So remember, summer camp is in school, but there's a lot of learning that can be had. And so, you know, curriculums like Triple Play, the DIY STEM, Diplomas to Degrees, Money Matters, and of course, making sure that you guys all facilitate brain gain. You know, ask your unit directors, ask your executive directors, the director of ops, ask anyone for your curriculum so that you can get started, because it's certainly going to be an exciting time to be part of the solution to making sure that our kids kind of lessen that gap. So I wanted to leave this with you because I think that it's extremely important to realize that when you do a little bit, it really adds up to a lot. It adds up to a lot. And I know earlier in the chat, they said, you know, libraries are free and they are open. Absolutely. And one of the things that we did here at the Boys and Girls Club of McAllen last year, we actually partnered with our city library, and all of our kids participated in like the summer reading challenge. And so you might want to take a look at what your city is offering in terms of those reading challenges. It's cool because they are the ones who, you know, they are able to get like prizes for the kids. And then it helps you guys along and really motivates the kids to want to learn. But I can tell you, I used to even read to my high school students and they loved it. So if you read to any of your classes, whether it's brain gain, whether it's maybe after lunch, one of the reasons why I always read to my middle school and high school students was because it was a great like bell activity. So they knew when I sat down on the chair, they knew that my expectation and they were cued into quiet. And so it was really great because I'm telling you, even my seniors in high school, they would listen. They would listen intently as I was reading, and it helped to get the class quiet, and it helped us to get on track to learning. And so that might be a strategy that you might want to use as you transition, maybe from lunchtime, maybe from gym time, outdoor time, you know, get the kids to see, okay, when the youth development professional sits down, then it's time to read and it's my time to be quiet. But take a look at that. If we do this, you know, for 20 minutes only, every single day, like in our case, we're hopefully going to open up June 8th, and then our closing time is going to be August 9th. If we do this every single day, that's 1,000 minutes. I'm sorry, I should not say hours, 1,000 minutes of reading. And so that little bit will go a long way. And think about the fact that when you read age-appropriate books to children, they learn new vocabulary, they are able to explore new places, and so you're able to take them to places that they've never been before. And so even more importantly during this time, that, you know, really consider what the role of reading can be at your clubhouses. And again, I love it because it's easy and it's free and you can have really great impact. One of the other things that we'll end here. One of the other things that my daughter told me that she loved was during PE, when they do races, she has to answer like a multiplication problem. So if it's a really quick card up that says 5 times 3, 15, and then she gets to go. If you think about every single time that you do that, every single day, how much that adds up, all of these little small increments of change in academic learning that can happen during summer learning loss here at our clubs, it's really profound, the change that we can have and the impact that we can have. So I want you to really think about all those small little elements and see what we can do at all of our summer camps this summer. I am going to leave you here with maybe a few mantras that you might want to consider, whichever one you like. You can remind yourself that you have a purpose. So I have a purpose, and that's to mentor and teach kids while having fun. I'm here to change the trajectory of the kids I've been entrusted with. I give them permission to go up the slide. I will not let them be a statistic. And every day I will do what I can to not let them be victims of the COVID slide. So, you know, I'm actually thinking for my staff that I might make them a little bracelet kind of similar to the one that I have on. This is actually a Boys and Girls Club Pura Vida bracelet that I have on. I'm really thinking about giving them something that reminds them of their purpose this summer, that we can help lessen that gap, and the summer learning loss does not have to widen on our watch, that we can help lessen that gap. And so any of these summer mantras for all of our youth development professionals, you are going to play the biggest role this summer in changing the trajectory of the kids that we are entrusted with here at the Boys and Girls Club. And if you are a decision maker in your club, I really ask that you consider all of this information that was given to you and ask yourself what you can do to empower and support our youth development professionals. And if you want to reach out to me, like I said, I really geek out on this information and this research from maybe an RD standpoint. Know that all of this data and research is really critical when we go out and talk to the community about the work that we do. So there's my contact information. When it says @SoyDalinda, you can find me on Instagram as well as on Twitter @soy_dalinda. That's my personal cell phone number, and that is my email address here at the Boys and Girls Club. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or any comments. I really, really hope that you take this information and empower yourselves to make a change. All of us together play a critical role in the lives of all of our club members, and it was such an awesome time. I'm honored to be able to present to each one of you guys, and all of us together, we're gonna be able to make a significant impact in the lives of our kids this summer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalinda, for that. I appreciate all the information and you know, you doing your research. So thank you so very much for that. Kudos to you, you know, and your co-panelists as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So at this time, it is time for our TPA Recognition Honors Award, and I have the privilege to introduce Alfredo Mata Jr., AKA also known as Freddie. Freddie started his journey with Boys and Girls Clubs as a club member at the age of 8, and he hasn't left the club since.